Oh my. The mind sync was cut. The connection just... Oh no. Sorry, I'll get it patched up now. Milady, more importantly, how is your condition? Well, I mean, how do you feel? Yeah. No, what I mean is, this is just a pain. This is the first time I had so much difficulty connecting a dive right. In this case, that much different than usual? I don't know, is this case that much different than usual? There has to be just the right amount of pressure from external mana so that the internal mana can stabilize. Being able to refine mana consistently is quite a difficult feat. Even though we look to be the same people, it's amazing how differently our bodies can function. It's like we're a completely different species. I beg to disagree. It all boils down to the presence or absence of mana. If we were to stay here long enough, then our mana status would end up deteriorating, and we would end up with the same physicality as you. Albus, you and we are all just the same human beings. I see. If I may, about that memory just now, you referred to a church. Does that mean there are also mana-related religions in the Outer Pole? There certainly are. In fact, the reason why a company like ours was able to grow so much despite being anything but religious is because of Eileen's idea that we partnered with the church. Even in the Outer Pole, there are plenty of people who seek the help from the god of mana. I never knew. The ownership of a pawn shop said that the god of mana had forsaken this land, which is what led to the development of science. That's pretty accurate. Even though our principles and religion contradict each other, they can still coexist with each other. It all boils down to us humans need something to believe in, even if it's a god who abandoned us. Then, I thought this was a land with nothing but self-serving individuals, but that wasn't the case. Sid and Eileen have such a strong sense of duty and concern. Those two are truly amazing. There's so much we could learn from such wonderful people. Agreed. While I was so fixated on working on simply conducting research, those two were always wholeheartedly directing their efforts to make the Outer Pole a better place. I was often reminded of the difference in our personalities when they were still around. What do you mean? I heard that Sid already moved on to the next world, but has his mother Eileen also passed on as well? Yes, several weeks after Rune died, she had also passed away. You see, Eileen was killed by Rune. She laced the tea Eileen had always drank with Process 1 before it was refined into a drug. She was killed by her own flesh and blood daughter. I can't believe it. Rune frequently snuck into Vihid's lab, Rune, who frequented Vihid's labs, actually snuck in and stole Process 1 that was kept for research purposes, though she had taken enough to kill 10 adults. Directors and executives of companies with other Outer Pole regions, who were all supposed to merge with Vihids, had later been found dead, poisoned. Rune then committed suicide after. Thanks to that one incident, our dream, Sid's, Eileen's and mine, to expand Vihid throughout the Outer Pole was completely scrapped. I was at a sincere loss for words. Just what could possibly drive Rune to do all that? At just 10 years of age, see. We heard that she, oh yeah, they don't know the story, do they? Because that was Rudo's flashback. We had heard that she was a problem child of sorts. No, this goes far beyond that. The devil's spawn. She certainly does live up to that nickname. What was her motive? There must have been something that pushed her to do that, right? We couldn't find anything like that. I've got to stop right-clicking. Rune had an abnormality in the brain, you see. A portion of her brain wasn't working. Even if she was able to understand emotions like happiness, sadness and anger, she couldn't feel them herself. She didn't feel fear or guilt, nor was she able to develop a sense of compassion. But could someone have developed such destructive tendencies because of a lack of emotion? I don't know. Maybe Rune was special, but at this point there's no way for us to find out. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I finished the connection. Are you alright, Selphine? You're looking a little pale there. Yes. Do we continue from earlier? Yes. Alright, here on, it'll be about the Zweihead siblings. Now I have to warn you, it's going to be rather disturbing. Are you sure you want to keep going? We are. So now we're going to learn about Rudo and Rune. A few years had passed since Sid spoke with the priest. The number of Zweihead's victims continued to multiply drastically. Then, one day, someone within the church came across evidence exposing the conclusion between the government Zweiheads and the Board of Science. That was the clincher. A fissure formed with a long-standing relation of the church and government leading to... Oh, my phone's gone off. Leading to an agreement to Zweiheads and the church. The energy industry versus the government versus the church. The level of discord among the three parties was truly unprecedented. In the midst of all that, Rudo was immersed in his studies daily, both in the academy and at home, in preparation for becoming Zweihead's Enterprise's next president. Just like his father, he also had a strong interest in mana and didn't have any difficulty studying. Rudo simply loved to learn. I remember him often telling Eileen that he was bored by the lessons at the academy. However, Rudo, intelligent as he is, had one big concern: his little sister, Rune. At the time, Rune had behavioural issues. She always had a frown on her face, and the only time she smiled was when people got hurt. Everything she did had some trace of malignant in it. Whatever her actions were, they were always to cause people problems. One day, Rune finally did something that put the final nail on the coffin. Rune stabbed the Growler's family's son's eye with a stick, causing him to lose it. Yes, now we get their side of the story. The whole incident of the Growl is what a mess. No kidding. I wonder what caused Rune to do that. Was she not satisfied with something? I don't know. Eileen, she's just heartbroken. On the outside, she puts a smile on and says she's fine, but she's starving herself and her body is just... That's terrible. And I feel so sorry for Rudo as well. I hope he isn't getting shamed or mistreated in school. This might be a good opportunity for him. Maybe it's about time. Age-wise too, sounds about right. He's lost in his own thoughts, huh? Wonder what he means. After the Growlers incident, Rudo had to stop attending school. The reason was never said out loud, but it was obvious. Rudo was just around 10 years old when he began to work as a trainee in Zweiheads. He studied daily in Lab 9, said to be the very best in the industry for producing top researchers, and started becoming more and more introverted. Now that I think about it, it must have been tough for him. As a child, Rudo was somewhat lacking in imagination. To be blunt, he wasn't fit to be a researcher. Both I and the other members of the lab thought so. Rudo truly had a talent for learning. However, he had difficulties coming up with anything new that was outside of what was taught to him. They were expecting him to have an eccentric imagination, just as Sid did when he was young, but unfortunately it was all for naught. On the other hand, he was careful, very careful, not to offend people with his words or actions, and was very considerate of others. Rudo was skilled in reading other people's emotions. As time passed, everyone around him slowly came to see him as someone who couldn't succeed Sid. A few years after Rudo began working in Lab 9, Rune's house arrest, the consequence of the Growlers incidents, was lifted. Rune was often brought by a home tutor to visit the lab. As time passed, it became clear. Though Rudo was said to be a prodigy in his aptitude for learning, Rune greatly exceeded his capabilities. Just a few months after Rune started to take trips into Lab 9, she was able to answer the unsolvable battery problems that had been plaguing the sisters' machines for years. Everyone was speechless. It was then that I saw a glimpse of Sid's inventiveness and creativity. No, she trivially solved a problem that Sid himself couldn't. Probably everyone in the lab thought that she would surpass Sid as a researcher one day. Rudo began to slowly lose confidence in himself. Even after things began to calm down with the Growlers incident, and he began to get along with Rune, Rudo was lost and didn't know what to do. It was written all over his face. Eventually, Rudo only did administrative work in the lab. It seemed to have dawned on him that he couldn't compete with Rune. And even then, Rune joined in the administrative work just as an assistant and took his job away from him. Sometimes it looked as if Rune was deliberately driving Rudo up the wall psychologically. There was some slight air of hostility to it all. No, hostility isn't the right word. There didn't seem to be any motive to it. From an outsider's perspective, it was just a little sister helping out her older brother, nothing more. Whether it was intentional or not, a normal person wouldn't have noticed. One day, Sid and Eileen came to me for advice. Look, I'm not against sending her off to school, but I just don't see the point. Ignorant. I already heard you, Sid. I want to hear what Albus has to say about the matter. Hey Albus, what do you think? Could I have your honest opinion? Should Rune go to school or... I don't see any problem with that. 6 whole years have passed since the incident with the Growlers boy. That's not the point. She's been studying at Lab 9 all this time. What do you expect her to pick up at school? I think it's a waste of time. I'm not referring to her studies. We need to reintroduce her to society. He doesn't even have anyone her age that she can call a friend. We need to at least try to let her live a normal life. And just who exactly determines what's normal and what isn't? I agree with Albus. Rather than holding her up in that dimly lit laboratory, I'd rather she lived and behaved more like the young lady that she is. Pretty surprising to hear that from you, Eileen, considering how insistent you were about her education. Well, of course, she still has to maintain her studies. However, I think we're pushing Rune far too hard in that direction. She may look perfectly comfortable with how she is now, but I think she needs to interact with other children her age as well. You really don't share that opinion, Sid? If you're asking for my personal opinion, I don't think people with skills are all that cracked up to be. If she keeps at that work, she's gonna end up picking them up. No, if she keeps at that work, she's gonna end up picking them up, whether she likes it or not. I swear, why is this man just so... You really should think about your abilities a little more. Your standards are well and far removed from what it was considered normal. Well, all that aside, my final decision is to let Rue choose what she wants to do. I don't plan to rob her of her ability to choose. She's got the right to. I knew it. Do you agree with him, Albus, then? I do. Considering Rune's age, it really should be the both of you. Hang on, wait. Considering Rune's age, it really should be the both of you making the final decision, but certainly agree with respecting her opinion as well. I'm just kicking stuff in my room here. Well, I'll go have Rune undergo a physical examination. I'll let the hospital know too. Thank you, Albus, really. I hope Rune appreciates the sentiment. And that's when they did the MRI scan, isn't it? It was a few weeks after that. Just before Rune was enrolled into an academy, she had a physical examination done in the lab. Using the MRI device that Sid developed, I examined Rune's brain. What the? Is this machine malfunctioning? No, who the hell are you? Thorlau? No, that's impossible. We just conducted maintenance on it yesterday. It's calibrated just right too. There can't be a problem with the machine. And your new person here, Sidnet. Albus, these are Rune scans, right? Is this even possible? This means that she can't feel any emotion. That's absurd. A human like this couldn't exist. Don't tell anyone about this, Zednitz and Volhal. Eileen is in a especially sensitive time right now. When the timing is right, I'll tell Sid in advance. The portion of Rune's brain which controlled human emotions was non-functional. What exactly this meant, none of the members of the lab nor I knew at the time. While concealing Rune's name, we even asked other staff in the media, but not a single person knew of this condition. It was obvious that something was wrong. MRI itself was still a new, young technology. However, the very first person to respond to this was Rudo. Rudo clearly knew something that we didn't. It was a few months after Rune was admitted into the academy when he revealed it to us, that she had been killing small animals. What's this book? Lie spotting. It's a book about psychological nature of lies and how to detect them. Oh, Albus. Good evening, Rudo. I have to talk with you. What's the matter? Rudo's story came out of nowhere. Rune is killing small animals at the park nearby. Honestly, it sounded so absurd that I couldn't believe what he told us. Ever since the Growlers incident, Rune had grown up to be a good young girl. Deep in my heart, I harbored a small doubt. What if Rudo was using that brain scan as a pretense so he could get revenge on Rune? He had more than enough reason and motive to do so. Against the gentle Rune, Rudo must have felt desperate given their positions. I don't expect you to believe it though. How do I even react? Have you told Sid and Eileen? No, well, not directly. I kind of played it off saying that Rune might end up doing something bad again. If I didn't, I'm sure Mum would get hurt again. I see. Yes, the only person I could talk to about this is you, Albus. Sorry, Rudo, but I think the only thing you can do for now is to keep an eye on the situation. If I can do anything to help, I'll be more than happy to. But right now, even if everything you told me is true, it's still not enough justification to take action right now. If I brought up the topic saying that I heard everything from you, if they decide to ignore it, that'll be the end of it all. You're right. By the way, what's this book for? Is this for taking measures against Rune? Yes. Rudo, do you think Rune is a chronic liar? I'm not sure, but Rune displays far too many tendencies that are described in that book, such as, for example, people who lie habitually are very capricious by nature. They hate staying in a single place. Once they get bored with things, they head elsewhere. Now that you mention it, she did say she wanted to see the outside world. It's not just that. They're always smiling, but it's only their mouths that are in a smile, while their eyes remain expressionless. Whenever you talk with them, they end up looking at you straight in the eye too much. There are a lot of people in and around town who haven't accepted Rune. When I asked them why exactly, they told me they couldn't on a biological level. I think it's an instinctive repulsion to her behaviour. Even if the person in question is an adult or child, when they come with something that feels foreign to us, then they become the target of fear and alienation. I think Rune already knows that she's causing people to feel disgusted at her and is intentionally behaving that way. More than that. Rudo? I'm sure Rune is planning something. He's building up her knowledge so she can trick us. There's got to be something she has planned, something much worse than the Growler's incident. Wait a moment there, Rudo. Aren't you jumping to conclusions here? She has been such a good girl this whole time. Now, I'm not going to completely ignore what you said, but as an adult I have the obligation to look at everything fairly and impartially. I'm sorry. I may have said too much. I wasn't exaggerating. Even now, I still remember that conversation clear as day. I paid no attention to Rudo's warning. That was the greatest mistake I ever made in my entire life. A few weeks later, Eileen collapsed. And several days after that, 12 of the top brass from Zahid's business partners all died from Process 1 poisoning. Rune disappears from the mansion. Another few days after that, a transport ship arrives at Alzapol. Rune's body is found aboard. Weeks after that, Eileen breathes her last while in Zahid's media. Those events constantly play themselves back in the back of my mind, over and over and over. From that point forward, Zahid began to collapse in on itself. Sid, having faced no greater calamity than this, was broken. Even though he had endured all the trials and difficulties of his past, Sid just completely broke down. He wouldn't even listen to me or Rudo. His work at the company went practically untouched. Instead, he holed himself inside Lab 9 and barred anyone else from entry. It was on one of these days. It was just as the Sisters project was approaching completion. In the end, the church refused to make use of the Sisters, but the frames that were built were repurposed to work in the manor mines instead. During the meeting to discuss where the Sisters were to be deployed, Sid suddenly showed up. But what? You want to pay the Sisters for their work? That's right. I want their service compensated. What brought this on? Why? We're just barely scraping as it is. Why should we pay machines of all things? That's because it's an order. Anyone who objects is fired. End of story. Sir Sid? Are you serious, sir? Well, you guys deal with that then. Wait a minute, Sid. This is an abuse of power. Tell us why, and then we listen to you. Why the hell do I have to explain every single damn thing I have to say? Even if I took the time to explain it, all you are just a bunch of idiots who wouldn't understand, so I don't even bother. All you need to do is just follow what I say like the servants you are. What's the matter with you, Sid? If all these people weren't with you, Zweihids might as well have never existed. Who's the one who holds the power? Me. I don't need to take any smack from people without any vision. What the hell? You just abandoned your job like this. Do you have any idea how deep in danger the company is right now? What did you say, boy? Open your damn eyes, you senile old man. Your job as the CEO of this company is to reassure everyone working here. Did you forget that? What the hell happened to your sense of right and wrong, your morals? Were you this weak that you can't even stick to them now that your wife is gone? Wow, you're sure sprouting some pretty big words for someone who isn't even half a man, eh, Rudo? Get a grip, Dad. You're just how things are right now. I don't need damn sympathy from the likes of you freaking kid. You all could pretend to run the company for all I care, but this is my company. I built it from the ground up. I can raise it to the ground if I damn well please. Now, you better follow my orders. And anyone who gets in the way of my research Sir. He's vomiting blood. Hey Sid, are you alright? Don't touch me. Sir Sid. Damn it. That night, I was called by Rudo. Just who exactly is Rudo Zweihids? Come again? This morning, when I looked at the mirror, I saw a man I didn't even know. That man didn't have a shred of sadness in him when his little sister passed away. In fact, I'm feeling nothing but relief. Rudo. My little sister should have never been born. She should have just hit her head against something and died when she was young. Now I'm finally free. Such were the man's sad, heartless thoughts. Now, Albus, is the Rudo Zweihids you know the kind of young man that would harbour such thoughts? Was he a person with such a warped heart that he would instead rejoice in his sister's death rather than mourn it? However, there is still something I owe my gratitude to. That thing for. That devil in disguise told me one thing and one thing only. That people are always controlled by their emotions. In this era, what we need are logic and rationality. The only people who have the right to talk about emotions or sympathy are those who have thoroughly pursued logic and rationality. My father was unable to do that. He is a weak man who tried to devote himself to some sorry excuse for philanthropy, but couldn't even follow through all the way. Rudo. There are far too many barriers in this world. Sid Zweihids could have been taken over by madness. His time is over. From now on I shall lead the Zweihids. I have the power to. That day, the dam that had been holding Rudo back finally broke. His growth since then was incredible. That kind, warm Rudo was nowhere to be found. Yea, he had truly changed as a person. Although he was still medical in terms of research, his track record in management easily dwarfed Sid's. Rudo put forward an avant-garde plan to save Zweihids. In order to deal with the mass murder that Rue committed, he established the corporate system. By taking in outside investors as members of the company's board of directors, he succeeded in changing the company's image from a family business to a corporation.